billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. I greet you, my brothers and sisters, with a noble and universal greeting of peace, used by the prophets and messengers of our universal Creator, Almighty Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It is a week gone by now. It's a month of Ramadan, 1444, and we are talking about, since the first day of Ramadan, 1444 here in South Africa, we've been talking about fasting, the importance of fasting. Remember, whenever I speak, there is nothing more important to me about speaking than speaking about our Creator, our universal Creator. The actual awareness and experiencing of our Creator is the priority here. Bringing to Allah a purified to bring to Allah a purified heart is the priority, is the purpose, and of our discussions, of our sharing. And we are talking about the Quranic verse that fasting has been prescribed to those before you, and now it has been prescribed to you as it was prescribed to those before you, and for the reason that you may attain taqwa. So when I'm talking about fasting, I'm talking about its real purpose. And I'm talking about its real purpose because what's important to me is actually becoming aware of and experiencing Allah consciousness, to have taqwa. Muttaqeen is those who have taqwa, those who are conscious of their Creator. And so our work with the Believers' Refuge training is always on the backdrop of what the Quran's guidance is to us. And the Quran is pointing us that Allah is our championer and cherisher, in that human beings after Adam and Eve had their own arrangements with Satan. They went into a state of separation and disconnection, where they began to experience shame and so on and so forth. And they were in a fallen state, the Quran tells us, from security to insecurity. And the Quran tells us that this is where human beings will be until guidance comes to the human beings. And those who receive the guidance, they will no longer be insecure. And until you remember Allah, until you become Allah aware, yours will be a depressed life. So let's consider these three things. One, my purpose and priority, which is to become Allah conscious in the truest sense of what that means, not what we think it means, not about our ideas that people told us what taqwa means, because people have told me that to have taqwa is to live in fear of Allah. And I can tell you, taqwa, from my personal experience of experiencing taqwa, has got nothing to do with fearing Allah. In fact, it's being aware of the consequences of living erroneously, and to be concerned and cautioned, to be concerned and cautioned about living unconsciously and subconsciously. That is something. It's called caution. You get what I mean? We are cautioned. The Quran is a book of glad tidings. If you read the Quran, it tells us that it itself is a book of glad tidings. It tells us the Prophet ﷺ was a giver of glad tidings. It tells us other prophets gave glad tidings. So the glad tidings is not that we must live fearfully, threatened, vulnerable, insecure, living anxiety prone, living in apprehension. No, a believer is somebody who is secure. So people told me, and some people even translate the word taqwa to mean fear. Fear is what you experience when you're unaware of Allah. You get what I mean? Those who are aware of Allah, the Quran says, the friends of Allah, they do not fear, they do not grieve. You get what I mean? Plenty times in the Quran it's come forward, Allah is forgiving and Allah is merciful, and ask for forgiveness and you will be given it, for Allah is the repeatedly forgiving, the perpetually pardoning. the protecting of the believer from our own sins. You know what I mean? It's Satan who threatens us with insecurity, the Quran says. It's not the Quran threatening us with insecurity. The Quran and Allah is not threatening us with insecurity. It's good tidings, it's glad tidings. You see, it is only a disbelieving people that despair. The Quran is not encouraging you to despair or feel anxious or worried or insecure. See, so this idea that, fast, and if you fast, you will feel very insecure. That's not really what taqwa is. And the idea that if you fast, that you develop taqwa, which is a shield, it's a protection. What does it protect us from, taqwa? It protects us from the lower self, the ego self, the fearful self, the separate self, the unaware of Allah self, the denying of Allah self, the associating with Allah self, the hypocrite self. Taqwa is a protection, it's a shield. It's a state of feeling secure, that you don't then be drawn in by our lower self, the physical self. You see, when Adam and Eve went into the agreement with Satan, they experienced disconnection. They experienced separation. That's where the insecurity comes from. That's where the diseased heart is all about. All of us are here. And until guidance comes to us and we apply that guidance, we will remain with an insecure heart. That's what the Quran says, bring to Allah a secure heart. You get what I mean? Bring to Allah a purified heart. Verily, in the remembrance of Allah, hearts experience security, assurance. In the remembrance of Allah. You get what I mean? So, taqwa is not to live threatened and vulnerable. Because the people who are feeling threatened and vulnerable, they are the ones that are more susceptible to Satan's whisperings and promptings. People who steal, people who cheat, people who lose power to things in the world and to people in the world. People, when they are faced with a situation to steal and cheat, there's an opportunity, and they steal and cheat because there's an opportunity. That's a reflection of the person not having taqwa. A lot of Muslims, seemingly called Muslims, and they don't have taqwa. There are people who steal and cheat, in terms of inheritance. I've seen it personally with people close to me, in my own experience. That people can't help themselves. They are going to the mosque so many times a day, but when it comes to money and inheritance, they'll rob the widows and the orphans. They don't think about other people. You get what I mean? I've seen it. So these are people without taqwa. They don't have that strength. The Quran says those who are really devout in the worship of Allah, Satan will have no authority over them. Satan will have no authority over them. That's why we have heard that in the month of Ramadan, Satan or the Satans are chained up. You know why? Because it's assuming that Muslims are real believers and they are applying themselves in fasting so that they may attain taqwa. That they are fasting for the purpose of taqwa. You see? I don't know how many people you know that are fasting for the purpose of taqwa. I don't know if anybody makes say, Allah, I'm fasting for you in this month of Ramadan from sun up to sundown, that I may develop the spiritual strength within me called taqwa. That when I'm in the world and there's an opportunity to steal, cheat, rob and rape, hurt people, harm people, behave badly, when Satan whispers to me, I want to be in that stability within me that I am not influenced by the temptations of Satan. I want to be God conscious and have taqwa. I want to be in the spiritual strength. Today we got people forcing their children and encouraging their children, very young children, sometimes, very young, prepubescent, to fast. For what reason? Starve. Because then you can say you kept a fast, and then everybody can be happy you're fasting. I mean, everybody's fasting, but are they really developing taqwa? As I said, there are people sitting in the mosque 5 times a day, but behaving very badly, no taqwa. But they're fasting. Are they really fasting? Are they really? Because if you're not intent on experiencing taqwa, that level of God consciousness, that level of spiritual strength, that fasting as a discipline, spiritual discipline serves you, are you really fasting, or are you starving yourself? Is it that the little child didn't eat food and starved herself from morning to night, from morning dusk to dawn, that now they're fasting? Is this what we're telling people? Is this what we're telling ourselves? Is this what we've been told? Fasting means curb the body's appetites from sun-up to sundown, dawn to dusk. Is that what you've been told? Is that what you think fasting is? Because if you are, you are in error. Because it means the starving people of the world would have the greatest taqwa. Because the more you starve yourself and you live in deprivation, then you have taqwa. No such thing. No such thing. Fasting has got absolutely nothing to do with deprivation. When you fast yourself, you're not depriving yourself. You are practicing abstinence for a certain reason. For a certain reason. You see? And it is a spiritual discipline. Now, it's not surprising to me that people think what fasting is and what fasting really is two different things. It's not surprising because people have an understanding or a belief about Allah, but they're not really aware and experiencing Allah consciousness. People have ideas of what Islam is, but they're not really aware of what Islam really is as a system of supporting humanity, contributing and so on and so forth. People are not aware. People are not aware. People think they know what worship is. They have ideas of worship, but they're not experiencing worship. You know what I mean? People have ideas of what they think what faith is, to be a believer is, but they're not in the awareness and experiencing of faith. They have ideas. People are in their heads, in that insecure mind of theirs. And you can see it in the behaviors, in the life and how we're living and so on and so forth. You can see. You can see. People think that the Quran is for just reciting in Arabic in a language you don't understand, but they don't know that it's there as a guidance to humanity to heal the diseases of our hearts. It's guidance of how to live, that we can correct ourselves, that all of us are requiring correction. So you get a whole group of people, I don't know how many people, millions and 100 millions and like over 1 billion people maybe in the world that are into Islamism. Probably one of the biggest cults in the world, that are not really into becoming aware and experiencing as a believer secure. The Quran says, don't say that you're a believer, for faith has not entered into your heart. Rather say that you are a submissive in religion. Do not say you're a believer. So well over 1 billion people or more might be into not really having a concern of the heart and purifying the heart and cleansing the heart and bringing to Allah a purified heart and experiencing Iman and experiencing Yaqeen and experiencing Taqwa. People got their stories and are busy in their stories, and they're not recognizing the Quran as the gift that it is of guidance, and they're not receiving that guidance, and they're not learning to live in a natural way. They've reduced the powerful way of Islam to a religion, with religiosity, with rituals and, dogmas and belief systems, arguing. Sadly, the Muslim world has reduced itself to a religion. I'm generalizing. A cult called Islamism as far as I'm concerned. And there's no real concern with Iman in the heart, the purification of the heart, and looking at, what dua really is, instead of thinking you know what it is. Instead of really becoming aware and experiencing beyond Satan worship, worshipping Allah. People are still insecure, perpetuating Satan worship, continuing. Nobody actually teaches people about the importance of A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajeem. That all of us are on a negative propensity, all of us have insecurity, all of us are influenced by this negative influences, and we are to claim refuge with Allah. The one who can really practice the discipline of fasting is the one who claims refuge with Allah. The Quran says, before you read the Quran, claim refuge with Allah. The Quran says so much about the refuge with Allah is required by us, and that Allah is sufficient as a refuge, and that we are to choose a higher version of ourselves. How many people you know in the Muslim world are choosing a more secure, a believing connection with our Creator, connection with truth, connection to who we are, where we are, what's going on here, looking at what's the satanic ploy on the planet and how Satan deceives people and deludes people. The Quran says, what has deceived you? What has misled you? How are you deluded? The Quran says, Satan is the enemy avowed, claim refuge with Allah. So if you live in your life without an aspiration to actually be a believer, have iman in your heart, if you living without a'uzu, I claim the refuge, I'm so happy there's a refuge, that I require a refuge, that from Satan the accursed, Satan has whispered to Adam and Eve, and then the children of Adam and Eve are whispered too, and there's a disease in our hearts. And that while we are here, there is for us to show up at a higher level in the world of being, of becoming, of living, of experiencing, of relating. While we are here, there is for us to become aware of Allah and Allah's being and His nature towards us, and experiencing Allah relating to us. While we are here, we to become Allah conscious, that there really is only Allah, that Allah is primary, who created us, who created people and things. Because of Allah we are alive, because of Allah we are alive at the highest levels, because of Allah we have existence in this world through our death and beyond. Allah is beyond this world. Allah is love, Wadud. Allah is compassion, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, the forgiving, the pardoning, Ghafoor. Allah is, and we are the favored creature. Allah has given to us life, privileged us. You see, the Quran says when you worship Satan, you are kafuran, you are not appreciative, you don't realize you have Allah, and you don't realize what Allah has given to you. I can tell you one thing, that if you are not aware of Allah as the absolutely valuable, and that Allah's grace, His infinite grace permeates all of existence, and that He has given to us people, things and experiences in the world, capacities, capabilities. Allah has created us, as human beings having the best of forms. Allah has created us as human beings, the highest life form on earth. Allah has created us with reason. Allah has created us with creativity. Allah has created us with capacities and endowments, distinguished us from other life forms. Allah has given us the opportunity to actually become aware of Him and experience being aware of Him. Allah has given us the opportunity to be interested in Him and attentive to Him, to be impressed with Him. What a wonderful thing to focus on Allah and to experience Allah consciousness. But the people are lost in superstition, ignorance, arrogance, and they're not aware of Allah as already being valuable to us. The people are not aware of Allah, because if you remember Allah, then in your heart there will be assurance. You get what I mean? The people are needing Allah, help us, we need you, we need you, we need you, you must do this for us, you must do that for us. Allah says Satan is the enemy. It's messing with your mind, messing with your emotions, when you believe the lies that Satan is telling you, you start feeling insecure, threatened, vulnerable, you start behaving badly. Allah is telling us it's for us to apply ours. Allah is telling us, look, you guys are under the influence of Satan, you're under the influence of Satan, you're behaving badly, you're lost, you're in darkness. The light has come. This is the Quran. The light has come into the world. The Prophet has come, as a messenger, bringing the revelation, sharing the revelation with the world, bringing it through, sharing it with the people. There is light guiding us to Allah, guiding us to who we are, what's this world, what's it about, there's the hereafter, and that in this world there are people who are going to live oblivious of Allah, they're going to live oblivious of Allah's favors, they are worshipping Satan, they are kafuran. and in their hearts is a disease. They say they believe in Allah in the last day, but they don't. Quran tells us directly. They have a disease in their heart and they're left to stray, and Allah leaves them to stray. And that those diseases are, get worse. You know what I mean? So my point is, fasting is a discipline. It's a discipline for what? You get what I mean? To develop spiritual power. What is spiritual power? Is when you are Allah conscious and you trust in Allah and you are assured with Allah, you know that Allah is sufficient for you, Allah is adequate for you. You get what I mean? The Quran says Allah is sufficient, Allah is adequate. You understand? You can trust in Allah. There's nothing missing. Allah is not partly sufficient. Allah is absolutely adequate. He is supremely sufficient for the believer, for everybody. Allah has power. See, the Quran says Allah has power over all things. But people who read that and just Allah has power over all, Allah has power, Allah has power, Allah, around it, that doesn't help. What actually helps is when you accept that. When you accept that Allah has power over all things. Instead of, I read it a million times, I read it a million times like a little child. Instead of accepting what the message of the Quran, a believer, a real believer who has iman in their heart, has accepted that Allah has power over all things, that Allah is sufficient for us, that Allah answers when the believer calls upon Him. This is a level of Allah consciousness, the trust, the security, and so on and so forth. You get what I mean? I know you haven't been exposed to this, because I haven't been exposed to this. But I can tell you honestly, one of the ways in which I have expanded in taqwa, spiritual liberation, and it is fasting. I love fasting. And so I said to you last week that we are talking about the spiritual discipline of fasting and why fasting is such a powerful discipline. But I wanted to make you aware, fasting is not depriving yourself. I eat healthily after I break my fast. I eat into the night, and if I do sehri in the morning, I eat healthily. It's not like I'm not eating day and night. Allah doesn't want hardship for you. You get what I mean? Allah doesn't want deprivation for you. It's not about, I fast during the day, but I fast in the night too. No. You eat healthily. You don't deprive yourself. Because the moment you go into deprivation, you behave badly. You start having like cravings and all that sort of thing. You understand? People, in other religions, people don't get married, whatever, then they have these physical, carnal cravings, then the altar boys and the nuns and all that stories, dramas happen, because they're living unnaturally. Fasting is not anything to do with unnatural living, deprivation. It's not to do with starving yourself. It doesn't mean if you starved yourself and didn't eat food and met other physical drives, carnal drives, that you fasted. It just means you deprived yourself. But fasting is not depriving yourself. Fasting is a spiritual discipline to draw you closer to Allah. Only those who are interested in bringing to Allah a purified heart can actually fast. Really fast. Because if you are living your life without wanting to become Allah conscious, you don't want to address insecurity, you don't want to go beyond the carnal self, you don't want to know yourself as a spiritual being, you don't want to go beyond the nafs, the lower nafs, you don't want to do that, then you can't fast, because that's the point of fasting. It's a'udhu, I claim higher, I desire higher, I want to function as a more spiritually inclined being. I want to function as a being who is aware of love and compassion of God. I want to be aware of Ar-Rahman, the all-compassionate, Ar-Rahim, the merciful. I want to become aware. I want to experience. See, ordinary kind of living people in the world, in the carnal self, in the mind and the behaviors, they don't know what compassion means. They don't know, they're not aware and experiencing of Allah and His compassion. They're not aware and experiencing of Allah and His mercy. You get what I mean? When you're learning in madrasa, it's like, you're a small child, you kept your fast, mashallah, mashallah. Give her 300 rand, 500 rand for the fast, whatever it is. That's what people are doing these days. Oh, you fasted the whole month, I'll give you 1,000 rand, whatever. Is that really spirituality? The Prophet said to people, tell your children that if you fast, you'll bribe them with money. Is that the sunnah? That's not the sunnah. It's when you become of age and you are on a path of spiritual development, and then the fast is there to assist you in spiritual. It's not a, let's just do a fast and you did it. Woohoo! It's not that. It's not that. It's not a good woohoo. You get what I mean? That's ooh, you know what I mean? So what we are realizing, that only those who want to expand in taqwa, who recognize the value of spiritual power, the shield from Satan, only they can really fast. I'm not saying there's no benefits of, not eating food from sunup, that is beyond, that's only taqwa is only benefit. But there are plenty other benefits. But the benefit that the Quran is telling us is to pursue taqwa. That I want to have spiritual power. That's the whole point. How did I get to this level of spiritual power? Fasting. Ask anybody who knows me. I love fasting. Why? I'll tell you why. Because of these benefits. What is the benefit of fasting that we are... Fasting has been prescribed for us. It's taqwa. It's taqwa. So how does spiritual fasting lead to taqwa? I'll tell you my personal experience. We are, when we're in the fallen state, when we're worshipping Satan, when we don't know about Allah, we are very physically focused through our bodies into this world. Everything we see, we start thinking about it, we get worried, we feel separate because we're not aware of Allah. We're not aware that Allah is more real than this world, and Allah has created this world. You understand? The power that created this world is not in this world. It created this world. Allah is. This world is made up. This world came into existence. Allah is not in what came into existence. Allah has caused what came into existence with a small letter E, because Allah alone is the only real existence with the capital E. You get what I mean? Now people don't know this. They have ideas, they tell you the ideas, what they learn. I'm telling you, if you believe in Allah, He will guide your heart. And He won't misguide you. Allah is not like, hey, come here, I'll guide you. Oh, I gave you the wrong guidance. Oh, I gave you the wrong... Allah is not like that. Allah is not like that. People are like that. People mislead you. Allah never misleads. Allah cannot mislead. You understand? Satan misleads. Allah will leave you to stray if you don't want to be guided. Allah is the guide. You get what I mean? So if anybody, can be you, can be me, don't think, oh, you have to have this big turban, then you'll be guided. The turban is what gets you guided. It's the sincerity to draw closer to your Creator, to become aware of your Creator, to experience assurance and security with your Creator, to go beyond living as a non-believer without Iman in your heart, to go beyond living insecurely. If you say A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajim and you know what you are saying, the Quran begins with A'udhu. The last 2 chapters of the Quran are about A'udhu. You get what I mean? Claiming that refuge that is there. It's not isti'ahada that I'm seeking. You're not seeking. Allah is there as a refuge. And when you say, I'm choosing higher, I'm desiring higher, I want to function, demonstrating human excellence, I want to go beyond Satan and all the ways in which Satan is, corrupting me and my mind, making me behave in ways, denying God, operating in a way, being disrespectful to God, to myself, to other people, choosing people who disrespect me, and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? We can actually really operate from a higher level than being influenced by Satan. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim is when I choose to operate from a higher level than from being influenced by Satan. Get what I mean? I want to be aware, and I want to experience. I want to recognize the truth. I want to recognize that I value Allah alone, the absolutely valuable. You see, when you become aware of Allah, you realize you have Allah, the absolutely valuable. And what Allah gave us, although has value to us, is not absolutely valuable. You know, when people think there's no water in drought, Allah give us that which is absolutely valuable, water. Allah give us water, like the water is more precious than Allah. That's how people are. You know what I mean? Allah has given to us people, things and experiences in this world, opportunities, options. That has value to us. But Allah is alone the absolutely valuable. Nothing is more precious than Allah. What Allah gave us is not more precious than Allah. You get what I mean? Now when you live in the fallen state, when you live worshipping Satan, when you live in this world identified with your body, how many people have told me, and it's, I'm not running anybody down, but people have told me the most important thing is your physical health. If you got your physical health, you got everything. How many people have spoken like that? You heard people say that. What about spiritual health? What about spiritual health? Because it's your spiritual health, your spiritual hygiene, your spiritual sanity, developing yourself spiritually, not just your physical health, your emotional health, your mental health, all that is great. But your spiritual health, your heart becoming cleansed beyond that guilt and that shame and that fear and that unworthiness that Satan just, keeps whacking you with all that, and you start behaving from that needy, co-needy, all that sort of thing. Can't see Allah's greatness. You get what I mean? So, people don't know. If you hear this and you play this for Maulana Guru and gang, they'll be scratching their head. You know what I mean? Maulana Guru and gang will be shocked to hear this. Because this is real life proof of the value of real fasting. This is real life proof of the value that if you fast for taqwa, you will have taqwa. I am the living proof that if you fast spiritually, really fast, you will have taqwa in your heart. You'll speak like this. You'll feel like this. Now, how many years have come and gone where you have fasted? Seasons have come, Ramadans have come and gone. Has that really in any way shifted you that you have more taqwa in your heart? I'm not comparing myself to you. I'm just asking a question. It's got nothing to do with me what your answer is, and what my answers have got nothing to do. I answer to Allah, you answer to Allah. We got nothing to talk with, like what my taqwa and your taqwa. It's got nothing to do with each other. We're not comparing. I'm just asking the question. The Quran says, if you believe in Allah, He will guide your heart. Is your heart guided? If it's not, it's unlikely you believe in Allah. You understand? The Quran says, if you appreciate, I will give you more. Are you getting more? If you're not getting more, it's unlikely that you appreciate. You understand? So I'm asking you, are you feeling taqwa? Are you transformed? Are you shifted? Are you changed? Are you more spiritually healthy after your fasting month? If you're not, that means it's unlikely that you have fasted in a real sense of what fasting means. It's like how many people, after reading the Quran, their hearts are purified? How many people? Because they're not really reading the Quran. Because the Quran says a book of understanding for those people who understand. It's guidance to humanity from the darkest point in history to the darkest barbaric people. They were transformed and were light to the world. You see? People are not just living lost, superstitiously, ignorantly, arrogantly. And you can. There's nothing wrong. The Quran says, there's no compulsion in religion, firstly. You can't force anybody. Truth stands evident. This is truth. It's evident, self-evident. Truth doesn't need any qualification. It's evident, the Quran tells us. When truth is hurled against falsehood, it knocks off its head. Nobody can argue anything that I'm saying. You can't argue. You can argue, but you'll expose your ignorance. You'll just be a fool. Because this is the Quran I'm talking about here. You know what I mean? And it means you don't understand the Quran if you're arguing around this. But if you humble yourself and you say, hey, you can learn. The Quran says, let those who believe, let them believe. Let those who disbelieve, let them disbelieve. It's got nothing to do. This world was created to see, death and life was created, that we see who will incline to truth. There's a purpose here. You're going to live lost and thinking, but I got money, I got children, I'm teaching I paid them to fast, they fasted, I paid them this month. Is that the purpose of, is that what the Quran is for and the Prophet and the fast is for? Is it? Because if you think it is, you could be a cultist in the biggest cult in the world called Islamism, which is not really the real Islam. Powerful, that is transformative of us, that guides us back to why we are here, bring to Allah, purified heart. So, what I'm saying to us what I'm sharing with you, is that fasting allows you to go from this physically focused self, this I that you think, this is me, this body. This is me, this body. I'm this body. And then when you think this is me, this body, then you think I'm hungry, I'm thirsty. But that's not you. That's your body. You are the one who is aware of Allah. You're the being. You're not the body. And fasting allows us to experience ourselves as the being. Because when you healthily, not deprive yourself, you have food before you fast, you have food after you fast, hopefully healthy, you're in good health, you are now, because that's what a believer is. Remember, the Quran is telling you how to eat halal and tayyib. So if you're eating halal and tayyib, your health will be good. You will be ready to fast. Now there are people who may eat halal, but they don't eat tayyib. The health is very poor. Now they want to go and fast. I want to fast, I want to fast, I want to fast. You don't listen to what the Quran is telling you. Eat properly. Be healthy. When you're healthy, you can fast. No, I always fast. I got my blood sugar levels, this, that, and all that. In the meantime, you eat junk. Now you're on a fast. You're not following the Quran telling you how to eat. No, I want to fast. Everybody's fasting on a fast. That's not really fasting. So if you are a believer, you get closer to Allah, you have followed the Quran teaching of eat properly, you are in good health, you are in good stead, you're secure, you're a believer. Now you can undertake fasting, where you purposefully choose to abstain from the body's cravings or the body's desires. And there's a lot of good reason for that. Because I'm going to talk about this at length in the next Friday lecture, inshallah. But the point I'm making is that when you can allow your body to experience discomfort, and you can know I'm still okay, without my being comfortable physically, I'm still okay. And without my being comfortable physically, I feel wonderful in the awareness of Allah, His greatness, His graciousness. I feel that heart connected. That I have so much to be appreciative for and thankful, while my body is feeling uncomfortable. You then go beyond this identification with the body and its drives and its mind, that if the body is uncomfortable, I'm uncomfortable. If the body is displeased, I'm displeased. You actually learn to be okay and feel good while the body is not getting what it wants. This is what it strengthens you spiritually. Otherwise, you'll always be, I'm not happy when my body is not happy. You'll be controlled by this world. Everything you see, everything you want, you'll have to have it. Here you learn self-discipline. And you learn to worship Allah, and you build that spiritual strength while you're practicing self-discipline. You choose. You know who the real fasters are? The real ones? Is the ones who fast outside Ramadan. Those are the real fasters for taqwa, I think. In the month of Ramadan, people fast for show everybody and I did my faraz and all that. But the real fasters are the people who fast outside the month of Ramadan, where they willingly and happily put themselves into physical discomfort or physical unsatisfaction so that they can still be happy and joyful even though the body doesn't get what it wants. You see, this frees you from your lower nafs. You can feel wonderful even though your body is uncomfortable. You can feel peaceful and joyful. You don't get, how people are, you don't get your way, you get angry. That's the ego, right? You try and control people. Now, me, if I don't get my way, I'm still smiling. I'll say, I don't want my way. That's where I have come to. I don't want my way. That's his taqwa. Shukr to Allah. All praise, glory and thanks is due to Allah who gave us guidance. And we are among the people who are really interested in that guidance. And we will know ourselves beyond ignorance of Allah, beyond ignorance of the Quran, beyond ignorance of the Prophet, beyond ignorance of what worship and prayer is and dua, beyond ignorance of fasting. We want to really wake up beyond the superstition and ignorance. Shukr to Allah. All praise, glory and thanks is due to the one who has guided us. Almighty Allah, His choicest blessings are upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shukr to Allah.